Bet on Bears fans, another edition of the Chicago Bears podcast coming your way. Pat the designer, Courtney Cronin back at it again. We got some injury news that maybe is not going to be on the bright side here for the Chicago Bears, as we got to talk about what Rome Odunze and Luther Burden are dealing with. Do get some positive news with the Tremaine Edmunds news, but the Bears may be catching a break, catching the Packers at the right time, coming here to Soldier Field. We'll talk about all that and more in today's episode of the Chicago Bears podcast. Hit that like button, subscribe to the page, leave a 5-star review. Y'all know what to do. Today's episode, as always, brought to you by Underdog. Make picks, win money. Courtney, what's going on? How you doing?
I'm good. It's this, this craziness in the NFC North right now, where they went from the 7 seed to the 2 seed. The Packers are where they are. It's like the margin is so thin, and this game and what it's leading up to on Saturday is setting up for like the biggest regular season game in how many years here? Like, honestly, you could say probably since 2018, because that's the last time they were, facing a chance to win the division. But it's coming quickly, and I think that the shape the Bears are in today, especially at receiver, is a little concerning, but it's not like the Packers are completely healthy. We know that they had 4 pretty significant injuries in that Denver game that are not looking so good right now.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's a lot to get into injury-wise this week, and like you said, one of the most important games. We know divisional games usually come down to who's got the most will, and the talent usually kind of finds a way to even itself out here. But where the Bears are at right now, I mean, it seems like this Rome Odunze injury could be very serious. Heard Ben Johnson talk yesterday, talking about how all options are on the table. Courtney, is this a situation with Rome Odunze where it may be shut him down and kind of risk him possibly not being able to come back here for the playoffs?
Yeah, I think that there's a couple layers to this. Number one, back-to-back weeks where you have players who were, you were expecting them to play, and then they're late scratches. Like, is that all on the player? No, sometimes that has to do with the evaluation of the training staff. I think that if you're Ben Johnson, you're like, what the hell? Like, why does this keep happening? Obviously, significantly different injuries for what Kyler Gordon was dealing with. Just pulls his groin. He's had a history of soft tissue injuries, whereas Rome Odunze has been dealing with the same recurring issue with his foot, heel, the whole thing.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, you don't want to be. It's learning a lesson from. Let's not make these players that we think might be needing a little bit more time to heal from whatever it is. Let's not put them at risk of that in warmups and then cost ourselves a roster spot. Because remember, they had to play with one less player up on the active roster because this happened right at kickoff or right before, the end of warmups, and he's ruled out right at kickoff. So I think that's the first thing. Beyond that, like when we talked with Rome about this specific to the foot, because I remember asking him, it was right before the Baltimore game, because he was talking about his heel at the time, because that's what it showed up as on the injury report. I was like, do you have to wear a special insert? Is this something that's like a pain management thing? He's like, he didn't really want to get into details. So he did say this, it's not nothing, that it is something that he has to maintain, a very careful eye with. And same thing with the training staff. And the fact that it keeps happening, keeps showing up, like they'll give him like a day or two to be DNP in practice, and then he's able to play through it. But then last week, 2 weeks ago, going into the Green Bay game, he wasn't able to play. Last week, he thinks he's able to play. He was questionable after being limited 3 days in a row, and then re-injures it during warmups. I think the only thing you can do now is shut him down. And that's not being unfair to the player, to the offense, to anything. It's trying to preserve him for a potential playoff run. Now, people can go back and forth and play revisionist history and say, well, he shouldn't have been playing anyways last week. The wind, the cold, all those things should have given him a week off. All right, well, that's neither here nor there. Now he's injured. And if you hear when Ben Johnson speaks about we might have to save the player from himself, he really wants to play. I get that. These are the first 2 games of his NFL career that he's had to miss. It's for the long-term gain. It's far better to sit Rome Odunze now. You saw you could almost beat the Green Bay Packers. You almost did beat the Green Bay Packers without him 2 weeks ago. I don't think you risked this. I think that however long it takes, if it's the next 3 games, if it's 1 or 2 games, if it's 1 game, this is not the time to experiment with, let's try to get him to play through something, because you will need him in January. You absolutely will need him in the playoffs should you get there. And I just don't think that you mess around with that. Like the depth, the receiver room right now is getting hit, but it's about playing the long game instead of just trying to figure out, well, do we need this player to beat the Packers when the rest of the roster, there's other ways that you can do that without having your number one receiver up.
Yeah, I think you feel probably pretty good about the game plan you have going into this game, seeing how well you were able to compete versus the Green Bay Packers in that last matchup. Hopefully more of the second half of what we saw than that first half, but how you were able to kind of get everybody else involved in that game. OZ gets involved in that one. Devin Duvernay
Duvernay
gets
with a
involved in that one, right? Like,
24-yarder.
yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
no,
so
no one saw that coming, and well, now they might see it coming because he might be wide receiver 3 in this game. But because obviously there's a Luther Burden thing we need to talk about. But
yeah,
yeah, I think from a pure talent perspective, and when Ben Johnson was asked on Monday just about the idea of cross-training all your receivers to make sure they know how to play every position, whether it's in the slot, whether it's the X, whether it's the F, the Z, whatever. Like, it's for moments like this where the end of the season, nobody feels great. Injuries are a part of the game. You don't want to have a drop off at any of those spots. So you want to make sure that even the guys like Devin Duvernay, who's never playing offense, knows the route tree,
yeah,
knows what he has to do, knows how to be in position for that 24-yard pass that he caught in Green Bay, which very well may happen again. And same thing with Zacchaeus. Like, I remember there was this idea that after the drops that happened in the Giants game that he was going to be like, Luther Burden was going to replace him. And yeah, like again, that Minnesota game, Luther Burden definitely got Zacchaeus' targets, but it's not like he's disappeared. He's
yeah.
still around. He's still part of this offense. And you may very well need him in a big way this weekend behind DJ Moore if Rome Odunze, who we're not expecting to be, good to go anytime soon, and Luther Burden, who Ben Johnson said is more day-to-day. If neither of them can go, you've got to see if the rest of your receiver room can help you stay afloat.
Yeah, we did get an injury report today. Andrew Billings, DNP, dealing with illness. Now, this is a walkthrough injury report, so it's not the end all be all. It always cracks me up on the Tuesday or Wednesday one when it's an estimation where people are just in the comments like flipping tables and losing their minds. Andrew Billings out with illness, DNP. Luther Burden, DNP with the ankle. We'll talk about that here in a second. Rome Odunze, DNP with the foot. Eamon Agbangbamiga, DNP. Tremaine Edmunds limited with a groin. We'll talk about that as well. Good to see him getting back on the field here. Travis Homer limited with his ankle. He was out last week. Cole Kmet limited with that ankle and knee. I thought that was an interesting one. I don't know if the sickness is going around here, but Tyson Bagent missed last week as well. Illness. He was a full go, or he was estimated to be a full go at today's walkthrough. So, as crazy as it sounds, Bears are getting healthy at the right time, but I think you hit the nail on the head with it, Courtney, right? Like this wide receiver room is the one right now that is taking the brunt of it. And Luther Burden is another guy who I think Ben Johnson is kind of living in this world of we may have to protect the player from himself. He's day-to-day right now, but Luther Burden finally getting these opportunities. He doesn't want to miss time on the field. What's the expectation right now for where Burden's at?
Yeah, I think that you play this one cautiously too, because Ben said Monday that you would wait till later in the week to determine with him, but listed him as day to day. He's got to be on the field though at
Yeah.
some point. So Wednesday, Thursday, the 2 times that they're going to practice before that Saturday game, if he's anything other than limited tomorrow, then I think it's no shot. I really do. I think that that's a smart play because it's not just the receiver depth that you have behind DJ Moore, who had a breakout game. And, there's a course correct that's probably going to come here, just like we saw last week. I'm not going to say Caleb forced him the ball, but there was definitely an emphasis of we need to get DJ Moore involved. The head coach said it. So obviously there's a trickle-down effect to the quarterback. But after seeing what happened in that Green Bay game and knowing all the opportunities that DJ had to be open and to, all the routes that he ran, I think that you're able to do some of the things that you did in Green Bay and have those targets, have him be quicker or, sooner in the progression and have that happen. But you also have 2 tight ends. Like, there's a reason that Colston Loveland and Cole Kmet are as a big a part of this passing game as anybody else. And yeah, Cole was limited, but don't forget, he finished out the game last week. He has that injury in the third quarter on the catch towards the down in the red zone on the Cleveland sideline, comes out, he tests it. He's good. He's going back in the fourth quarter. I imagine he'll play. I imagine Colston Loveland, there's no injury issue with him. So I imagine the 2 of them end up picking up the slack for the other 2 receivers. And I think that that's why you can play it safe with Luther Burden, especially with an ankle injury. Like, you don't want to be dealing with something in cold conditions. You're playing the rest of your games outdoors the rest of the year. Like, if your body's not warm, if you feel that, if there's anything that could potentially hinder you in these conditions, I just think that you don't even risk it. And so I would imagine that they would be able to stay afloat in the passing game, knowing what, who they're not facing on the other end. The Packers are still a very good defense, but now you have one less superstar pass rusher to account for. I think they'd be okay choosing their battles with that and saying, we're going to rest our 2 receivers that we really need, because Luther Burden has been tremendous.
Yeah.
Like, he was their leading receiver last week and he missed, a quarter and a half of football because of getting carted back to the locker room with an ankle injury. The fact that he took a cart back to the locker room, like, it wasn't like his leg was up, anything like that, but I was standing there on the sideline and, I was watching him like, is that just because they don't want him to walk? Is it, whatever it is? It's not a very far walk to the locker room, but, clearly they didn't want any weight on it. So I think that that's a sign that this is something that they really don't want to push unless, they just don't want to push it, and they want to get him as healthy as they can for when they really, really need him.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting too, like trying to get him as healthy as possible, but not pushing it with what we've seen over the past couple of weeks. I wonder if that's going to play into some of the decision making here, where you try to get Kyler Gordon ready to go, ramped up. Now he's out for the season. You try to get Odunze ready to go, ramped up. No confirmation that he's out for the year, but it certainly feels like from Ben Johnson's comments, we're probably not going to see Rome unless this is a playoff situation here. So I do wonder if they maybe slow play it a little bit here with Luther in that situation, which could get difficult and would change the game plan a lot, because you mentioned how much he was involved last week versus the Packers. Luther Burden was really the go-to guy for Caleb Williams outside of Colston Loveland. 6 targets, 4 receptions for 67 yards. Colston Loveland was 5 targets for 29 yards, 4 receptions, and caught a touchdown in there. Like, he's trusting this rookie class a lot there. So having Luther would be a blow to this Bears offense, and hopefully it's one where you can go to Loveland and feel confident about that going in this Packer game.
Yeah, I think that you can. I feel like they've demonstrated that for as many mouths as there are to feed, and it can get challenging where guys get left off of a game, like a game plan on a week-to-week basis, just like we talked about with DJ. He bounced back, and even Ben Johnson foreshadowing, what could happen even further. He said post-game that sometimes these things happen, and then all of a sudden he can get hot, and then the next 3 games he's on a roll, and that's where they really need him. Like, now is your chance. DJ Moore with the $110 million contract, like, this is the moment where you can, show them they made the right investment in you, that your role is still, and I don't think you should question. I don't think we questioned it, but it was like, okay, well, why aren't the targets going his way? But his role in this offense is to be versatile, is to be able to line up all over the place, whether it's in the slot, whether it's out wide, whether it's in the backfield. He does a lot of things. They desperately need his versatility now to save other guys from themselves and save them for a potential deep playoff run, one game, however many games they would, make it in January. This is not the time to push things through when you have other players who are more than capable. We've seen game-winning moments from just about everybody else here. DJ Moore, obviously, his second 2-touchdown game since the Pittsburgh game. Cole Kmet has had a major impact for Caleb Williams in this offense. Colston Loveland's caught game-winning passes from Caleb Williams. They're capable of it. And I think that that's something you have to trust in if you're the offense, knowing that you don't need to force something through just because it's like, oh man, Luther's been great. He's been playing a lot lately. And the targets have been going his way. You have other players that you cross-train that you make sure. I mean, hell, Zacchaeus, let's not forget, before we were talking about the DJ Moore insane scramble drill touchdown from Caleb Williams and that throw, the Zacchaeus pass in the same part, same-ish part. I mean, Zacchaeus
same corner of the end zone. Yeah,
Zacchaeus was legit in the corner of the end zone in the front pylon. He they don't need that. They don't need to they have other players who can do those same things. So I don't think you overthink this. I think it's a very cut and dry thing. If guys are not healthy and you have other players that are more than capable of playing, then you don't worry about trying to force somebody to be healthy when they're not.
Yeah, and let's hope that it works out for the Bears this week. The one thing I would say, keep an eye on, see how well that outside zone run has been. A lot of that is because of Rome Odunze, Luther Burden, DJ Moore. No block, no rock, right? They have really embodied that. We've seen Olamide Zacchaeus struggle in that role. I mean, even on the DJ Moore screen pass, was it 2 weeks ago? I think that was blown up. Where it got blown up. OZ got to be there and make that block, and he knows that. So hopefully those are things that'll be able to get cleaned up. But at a minimum, we know you can run that football up the middle for sure now with some of the injuries the Packers are dealing with. We do want to get into Tremaine Edmunds and, of course, talk about some of these Packer injuries. But first, we got to get our first leg here of this underdog play as Courtney, we're talking about the receivers here. I think there may be a receiver who's got to get all the love this week, right?
I mean, it's the most obvious pick that I could make, and I'm taking an anytime touchdown from DJ Moore. If those two, and even if for some reason Luther Burden can like miraculously get his ankle healthy and ready to play, DJ Moore is still your top target because Luther's not going to be at 100%. You don't have an ankle injury the way that he did, where he had to be on a cart going back to the locker room and expect that it's all of a sudden healed the next week. Just not realistic. So a DJ Moore anytime touchdown, I think, is a very safe play. You look at what his production has been over the last couple of weeks. You won't see -4 again. You won't see 1 catch. You won't see 3 targets. I mean, the 5 to 7 targets for him is the sweet spot this year. And when you have less weapons available on game day, like they are, projected to have, given the injuries, I think that number is upwards of like 6, 7. I didn't mean to say it. I didn't mean to say it. I'm so sorry. 6 or 7? That'd still be the same.
No, it's still there. Nope, you're living in this now.
Yikes. Well, he hasn't had an 8 target game this year, so I really couldn't foreshadow that. I mean, it was 7 targets against Pittsburgh, 5 against Philly, 3 in Green Bay, 5 last week, and he did a lot with his targets. 2 touchdowns off of that, 69 yards, 4 catches. Like, I think his stat line mirrors more of that than anything like that it did a couple of weeks ago. And I think he'll have a touchdown at some point. I mean, it seems obvious with the way the passing game, and Green Bay knows that. They're going to obviously try to like send more help to his side to because they know that the ball is going to DJ Moore. If Ben Johnson keeps talking about, we need to get DJ involved, what do you think the Packers are going to do? So but I still don't think that would preclude him from reaching the end zone. He's a talented player. We've seen the type of catches that he can make on throws that you think like, what the hell, that's not going to work. It does. Yeah. And I think you might not see the exact same low completion probability of a throw like Caleb Williams made. Maybe you will, because he seems very confident in his abilities to make those throws. But I think DJ will be
very
on the
confident
end of a touchdown. Yep.
Very confident as he was at the podium. Listen, I'm keeping my eye on the possibility. We may have to double up DJ Moore this week because I don't know how I'm feeling rest of the week, but yards might have to go in there as well because we've seen DJ Moore single-handedly take over a Bears versus Packers game. And I think this might be one of those weeks where, not that you're force feeding him the football, but kind of where you're like, he's going to kill you if we get him the ball. We're going to get him the ball. We'll talk about all that and more coming up next, but make sure that you guys do download the app today. Sign up with the promo code CBP to score $75 in bonus entries when you play your first $5. That's promo code CBP. Underdog, make picks, win money. EOQ, the disclaimer. Must be 18 years or older, 19 or older in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 or older in Colorado for some games, 21 or over in Arizona, Massachusetts, and Virginia, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. See assets.underdogfantasy.com/web/play and get terms _DFS_.html for details. Offer not valid in Maryland, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467.
I love that my husband's so handy. He leaves more money for the important stuff.
Whoa.
Gosh darn it, Steve.
Oh. Don't be like Steve. Call Avondale Roofing. DIY is for Pinterest, not your roof.
Welcome back into the Chicago Bears podcast. Pat, the designer, Courtney Cronin, back at it again. Today's episode also brought to you by the Advantage Dealer Group. Find your next Chevy, Toyota, or Acura and drive off in under 60 minutes, or they'll make your first car payment. Also brought to you by the Hard Rock Casino in Northern Indiana, Las Vegas style gaming, just 30 minutes from Soldier Field, exit 6, right off of I-80. 94. All right, Courtney. Now, I think this is the big news and maybe even a little bit surprising with some of the conversations we've just had about guys coming back very quickly. Ian Rappaport tweeted this out yesterday. Help is on the way. The Bears are opening up the 21-day window for linebacker Tremaine Edmunds as he begins to ramp up. There's a real chance that he returns this Saturday versus the Green Bay Packers. Courtney, do you feel like Tremaine Edmunds is going to be back on that field? Of course, probably with limited snaps, but with what we've seen from DeMarco Jackson, with him and the rapport that him and TJ Edwards have together, it feels like that is the one guy that maybe you could get away with waiting on coming back here.
I get that. I think that DeMarco Jackson has been such a revelation for this defense. I mean, the turnovers, like Ben Johnson, again, keeps talking about how that was the turning point of the game where, the interception that sets up DJ Moore's touchdown one play later, like Noah Sewell's back and Noah Sewell's not playing because DeMarco Jackson is a better fit right now in their nickel package for what Dennis Allen wants to run.
And can call it. He's calling it.
He's calling the defense, and I think he's doing a really good job with that. So I think that speaks to a lot of things. But what does it mean for Tremaine Edmunds? Well, when he was put on injured reserve with the hamstring injury after that Minnesota game, like the way that it was described was that it wasn't going to be something that kept him out for too long, but clearly enough that to miss 4 games after that was the appropriate timetable. He's been around, he's in the locker room. I think just like the visibility standpoint shows you that, I think that's a big thing because he's around, he's rehabbing, like he looks like he's ready to go to get back out there. Now, with Josh Jacobs being injured right now, like there's so he was DNP today for the Green Bay Packers. If they were practicing, he would have been DNP. Same thing, like injury, estimated injury report. He took a really big hit, if you remember, in that Denver game. So that's 1 week after he was DNP Wednesday, Thursday, practiced it in limited capacity, and then was listed as questionable going into that Denver game. He's clearly a tough dude. He can play through a lot, but he's not going to be 100%. 2 weeks of this, this guy is hobbled right now. Do you necessarily need Tremaine Edmunds in that situation? Not necessarily. I mean, I certainly think it helps. I mean, there were moments from the past game where it's not like, I don't think they let Josh Jacobs take over. I think there were moments where they missed some really critical tackles, like that 3rd and 2 where he went for 21 yards to set up the touchdown, and their eyes were not in the right place. But if this is a pattern where they want to get, like Jalen Johnson, they want to get Tremaine Edmunds ramped up. So if you make him active, you have him on a pitch count, following along with what they've been doing with some defensive players that have been injured and come back. They did it with Kyler Gordon. They're still doing it with Jalen Johnson. Then I could see them making him active if he's good to play, if he's good to practice Thursday, Friday, whatever capacity. They'll probably have him limited throughout the week to see what happens. But if there's any I think that that means he'll be activated on Friday, and then he'll play on a pitch count. But I think it's more so if you get him active now, if you activate him off injury reserve now, can you get him in a ramp up so he's not then having to wait another week until the San Francisco game, and then is playing kind of from behind when it feels like it might be the appropriate timetable to start getting him some snaps.
No, yeah.
I mean, Jalen Johnson's talked about it. Sorry to interrupt. Jalen Johnson's talked about it with, he's like, it's really hard to replicate game speed.
Yeah.
It's very different than what you're doing in practice. We know that, but sometimes I feel like that needs to be re-emphasized because there were times last week, Jalen Johnson played 8 snaps in the first half of the game. And I asked him about the pitch count. He's like, how many did I play on defense? I'm like, 8 in the first half. And obviously he gets cooked on that the one throw to Bond, but then comes through on the Jerry Jeudy, should have been touchdown.
Which he also got away.
Yeah, I think it's, he's getting himself back in a rhythm. It's a soft tissue muscle injury that you're worried about re-injuring. And I would imagine another soft tissue thing. The Bears have dealt with a lot of these on defense. You don't want to risk that, but I think you need to find the rhythm for Tremaine Edmunds to make sure that he's comfortable out there. So then he can start getting on the runway and then ramp up and not have to be like, all right, let's ramp up in the San Francisco game. It could be, for the division in week 18, who knows, against Detroit, and then have him get re-injured there. I think this is a timetable thing of when can you pick your spots over the final 3 games to make sure that he is hitting his stride when you need him to.
No, 100%. That's the thing for me, right? When you see these guys come back, a lot of people have been like, Jalen, he just doesn't look the same. Yeah, he hasn't played against real NFL speed for the entire season. He's got to get himself back up to speed on that. I think we slowly see that happening, but there's also those moments where you got to build that lather up. We've talked about that a ton, right? Jalen hasn't had an opportunity really to get out there and just be on the field and just get used to it, right? Like those moments are important, but they don't want him to deal with that injury again because, like you said, that's something they've dealt with all season. I think the same could be very true here for Tremaine. And what makes this very much like we talked about with Rome, like we talked about with Luther, you've got a guy who's standing in there. Now, is he Tremaine Edmunds stature? No. The biggest difference Tremaine brings, that wingspan, that length, the ability to be in the quarterback's face and change how a quarterback has to throw the football because of the pressure that he can provide. But DeMarco Jackson has done a dang good job out there calling this defense over the last couple of weeks, a defense that I thought did a really good job in the second half of that Packers game, really shut some things down there, did a dominant job. Again, like I get it, the Browns offense is basically, I mean, Courtney, you were basically playing left tackle, especially with the snowsuit you had on.
They were so injured. I mean, they were losing. They were down 2 starters to begin with. They lose more in the game. Like,
yeah, Tevin Jenkins goes out in the game. Yep. We've never seen that before.
Like they're not going to have that same sort of, like, that was a benefit to the Bears. Yes. And that's why the pass rush was able to get home and sack him 5 times. Sack Shedeur Sanders 5 times and, force him into throwing some of those interceptions. But
could have been Stefanski sending him out there with the wrong wristband too. That could help.
The play sheet allegedly fell out of that one. So that's interesting.
It's so obvious, the hate. It's so obvious. Like, it's the funniest thing in football to me. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no. I mean, I just think that, the challenges or lack thereof that the Bears did not have presented to them against the Browns. Like, the Packers offensive line, as it stands right now, is not nearly in the same state that, the Browns was. Yeah. Like, their injury report, like right now, I'm looking at it right now. So Christian Watson still has that chest injury. He would have been DNP today as well. Like their offensive line, they've got it's Darian Kennard and Zach Tom. So those are the only guys that are on there right now. I just think it won't be as big of a deal in terms of the protection around Jordan Love, and very different quarterback, very different challenge that this defense will be presented with against that offense.
Yeah, and it seems like, the Packers are very banged up here. Of course, we know about the big one, Micah Parsons, going out with that torn ACL. That is probably going to have the biggest impact. But that defensive line already was dealing with some tough breaks. And listen, the Bears did a really good job and have done a really good job dealing with these dominant pass rushers.
Yeah.
Now you don't have to face one. I don't think that means Ben Johnson's going to take his foot off of the gas here. I think this means probably let's keep an eye out and see if Ozzie Trapillo can actually go out there and dominate it. We talked about it last week, Courtney. Baptism by fire, Max Crosby, TJ Watt, Micah Parsons, Myles Garrett. Now you were expecting to get Micah Parsons again. You won't be dealing with that. I think that's going to impact the game a ton for this Bears offense that I thought found a lot of answers in that second half. And if everybody always says, if you have 5 more minutes of football, you probably win that game.
Sure.
There weren't 5 more minutes of football, but it did feel like you were right there, one good pass away from beating that Packers team. And I think that this time around, it's going to be advantage Bears, and maybe in a shocking way. If the Packers can't get to those explosive plays as much, which does still seem to be a Bears weakness, even in the Browns game, they were dealing with that. So this may be a game where you talk about either it being a shootout or the Bears having a lot of answers offensively.
Yeah, because I remember the first time they played, however many, 2 weeks ago, it was Devontae Wyatt who did not play in that game. Yep. And he's been obviously ruled out for the season, since like that, and he won't be playing in this game. I'm trying to pull
up the week before they played the Bears, he got ruled out.
Like I'm trying to pull up the stat here, because the thing about Micah Parsons, and I know that Ben Johnson talked about how do you game plan for somebody who's not there, and or how do you game plan for a defense that has looked so much different than with a player who's not there anymore. And they're still a very good defense. They were a top 5 defense last year, but Micah Parsons had 64 quarterback pressures entering week 15, 11 more than the next closest player. And the next closest player on their team is Rashawn Gary. So they're down 2 of their starting defensive linemen. Can they pressure the quarterback? Can they get after a healthy Bears offensive line? There's not a single offensive lineman right now in the Bears injury report. That's a great sign
Yeah.
for what Chicago wants to do in trying to keep Caleb upright and giving Caleb time to make those throws. And I think it's going to be a very, like, the Bears are the first team that get to see what the new look, old look Packers defense looks like. You know, they're fine on the back end. I mean, Keyshawn Nixon was a game record the last time that these two teams played. You know, in the middle of their defense, Ezerike, I think I'm saying his name right, and Edrin Cooper, like those are guys that are still going to be there and they're going to be a problem. But I think you catch a break you obviously catch a break not having Micah Parsons out there, and that should be something to the Bears' advantage where, you know, they get lucky, and it sucks that it's an injury thing. Obviously, like, you want to, like, you know, what Caleb Williams talked about, you want to play the best players. You want to play the guys that are, you know, the biggest challenge. But if they want to win this division and lock it up this weekend, I mean, certainly they don't control their own path because Detroit has to lose to the Steelers, which I don't know. I don't think they will. But
that'd be shocking.
you have a much. I feel like I'd be really surprised if anybody picks anybody other than the Bears in this game, just given how dangerously injured. They had 9 DNPs today, and that's, you know, not even including Micah Parsons and the other guys that we've talked about, but like how really badly injured they are, and, you know, how those injuries are probably going to be something that, even as well as Jordan Love is playing, yes, he threw 2 stupid picks last week and didn't look great in the fourth quarter, but like, I just don't think there's enough for him to overcome that, like, and still keep this team on its Super Bowl trajectory.
And listen, I think here's my thing. You know, like, what I don't want this to become is, oh, well, the Bears found a way to do it. Like, the Bears had the answer versus the Packers. You just found them way too late.
Yeah.
Right. Sometimes that does happen. And I think coming into this game, right, we already know the conversation is going to be, well, the Packers weren't healthy enough. The Bears haven't been healthy enough all season, and they've been able to find ways to make it work. So I think that this is not to say it's even playing field here. Micah Parsons is probably, I mean, based on PFF, he's probably the second best pass rusher in football right now behind Myles Garrett. It is going to change this game plan dramatically, but that's on Matt LaFleur to figure out and find some answers on that, just like Ben Johnson and Dennis Allen have been able to do all year. I mean, we're talking about Tremaine Edmunds possibly, you know, being on a pitch count where he doesn't play because we feel confident about DeMarco Jackson. DeMarco Jackson's been in the league, 5 years? This is his first time playing. 3 years. This is his first time actually getting to be active, and he's shown up and balled out. Like, I think that this is a conversation about, okay, which side or which team has done a better job developing those guys that have to come after your star players that have to step in, because Bears coming banged up, Packers coming banged up. I think this is a very mano-a-mano matchup, and hopefully Caleb Williams continues to find those answers, because, Courtney, if we're going based off of what we saw the second half of that Packers game and this game versus the Browns, the second best defense in football, seems like Ben Johnson's getting what he wants. The Bears are playing their best football in December to this point.
And I feel like he proved to himself against, you know, it's the number 1 pass defense in the NFL. Like, starts out 0 for 3, goes 5 for 5.
Yeah.
Right after the 2 first quarter touchdowns. Yes, there can be a lot cleaned up in that second quarter, the middle 8, if you want to call it that, even, you know, just like the 4 minutes before halftime, 4 minutes after halftime. Yeah. But like, I think the second quarter as a whole, because of the, you know, just some of the drives that didn't really go anywhere.
Some of the drops that happened. I mean, the Monangai drop. OZ had a rough day. Like, those things, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, like, you think of the third quarter, like the turnover on downs. That's basically a turnover there. But then after the punt on the next possession, touchdown, and then they kick a field goal in the fourth quarter, and that game was completely out of hand. But there's a lot that they can take away from finally getting off to that fast start and doing it against an inferior opponent, but still against a inferior opponent on offense, but a really good defense.
Yeah.
I think gives you confidence that if you're Caleb, finding those early completions, finding the big play where you need to, not, you know, against Green Bay, you know, overthrowing guys, the accuracy issues showed up, but that seemed to go away against the Cleveland Browns. And I think he got into a rhythm far better, which carried over into that second half that allowed them to work through some of the ruts that they were in that second quarter and the, you know, the first part of the third quarter.
Yeah, listen, and I think it should instill a ton of confidence in this football team offensively. I mean, this is a Browns defense that, yes, like, when you're on the field that much, when you're missing that much of the time of possession, it's going to affect you differently. But they've gone to battle with some really good teams in the NFL this year. They beat the Green Bay Packers, right, this season. So, like, when you take a lot of that into account, like, you should feel like, okay, if we can beat that defense and beat Myles Garrett, we should be able to go out here and put up points on this Packers defense, especially now that Micah Parsons is not out there. And I would, as crazy as it is, right, we thought the last time we played them was going to be the day where it was going to be the run heavy, turn around, hand it off to the run. I think that's the day now. Like, listen, the Packers defense was good last year, but there's a big name, Kenny Clark, not in the middle of that defense anymore. Devontae Wyatt is out now with his injury. Michael Parsons is gone. I think this is a day where you say, we're going to show you how dominant we are. We're going to turn around and hand this football off maybe 40 times in a game to try and just wear them out like you did by the time the fourth quarter came around last week or last time you played them.
Yeah, no, I mean, that the run game came alive too late.
Yeah.
But once it did, I mean, you had, what was it, an 18-play drive that resulted in a 17-play drive that resulted in a touchdown when Colston Loveland had that 1-yarder from Caleb Williams. That was a really good strategy. It's like, why didn't they do that earlier in the game?
I think there was a lot of trying and a lot of like Micah Parsons showing up in that spot. Listen, that's the defense. Yurko said it on the pod. That's a defense you got to wear down. I think that's still going to be the case, but now you'll have a little bit more of an opportunity to wear them down
in the third and fourth quarter last time they played.
Yeah. So hopefully that's something this Bears team can get done this time around. Courtney, anything you're watching for closely as the rest of the week plays out?
I think it's going to be the Tremaine Edmunds injury, because I think the receiver stuff to me seems like a cut and dry. You need to rest these guys for a little bit, but I'm curious to see, like, if Edmunds ends up getting activated this week, just what that pitch count looks like, because that feels like that's par for the course for what they've been doing for their defensive guys coming off of soft tissue injuries.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on all of it here. Can't wait to see what the injury report is going to be throughout the rest of this week. And hopefully we start to get a little bit healthier here, especially on that defensive side. Hey, for Courtney Cronin, it is your boy, Pat the Designer, back at it again. Appreciate you guys for tuning in and showing love. As always, hit that like button, subscribe to the page, leave a 5-star review. Y'all know what to do. Y'all stay safe out there, Chicago. Bear down, one love, and drop some FGBs in the chat, because this Packer week yet again. Peace.